The moment you decide to focus on yourself, something extraordinary begins to happen. Not slowly, not eventually. Immediately, your mind starts to harden. Your thoughts become clearer. Your energy stops leaking in 1,000 directions. Most people live mentally exhausted, not because life is hard, but because their attention is everywhere except where it matters. They are focused on opinions, comparisons, noise, approval, and problems they cannot control. And as long as the mind is divided, it will remain weak. Strength begins with focus, and focus begins with self-discipline. A scattered mind is easy to defeat. A focused mind is nearly unstoppable. When you turn your attention inward toward your habits, your thoughts, your standards, you reclaim power that was never lost, only misplaced. You stop reacting and start commanding. You stop chasing and start building. The world does not reward potential. It rewards clarity. Every great transformation in history began with a single individual who mastered their own mind before attempting to influence anything else. They understood one unbreakable law: you cannot control outcomes until you control attention. Focus is not obsession with ego, it is respect for your purpose. When you focus on yourself, you begin eliminating unnecessary battles. You stop proving, you stop explaining, you stop seeking permission. Your silence becomes confidence, and your consistency becomes your voice. This is where real mental strength is born, not in motivation, but in repetition, not in emotion, but in decision. A disciplined mind does not wait to feel ready. It moves because it decided long ago. Distraction is the greatest enemy of progress. It weakens willpower, fragments energy, and keeps people busy but unfulfilled. The focused individual understands this and guards attention like treasure. They say no without guilt. They walk alone without fear. They work quietly while others talk loudly. Isolation is not loneliness when it has purpose. It is preparation. When you reduce external noise, internal wisdom gets louder. You start hearing your own standards instead of borrowed opinions. You build beliefs that are not shaken by trends or crowds. And with each day of focused effort, your mind becomes calmer, sharper, stronger. Confidence is not loud, it is rooted. A person who focuses on themselves does not compete, they create. They are not offended, they are centered. They are not distracted, they are deliberate. Their mind no longer jumps at every stimulus, it moves with intention. And intention repeated daily becomes destiny. This is not about ignoring the world forever. It is about mastering yourself first. Once your mind is trained, pressure no longer breaks you, it refines you. Failure no longer stops you, it instructs you. Criticism no longer weakens you, it confirms that you are moving independently. The focused mind does not seek validation. It produces results. Every hour you invest in self-development compounds. Every disciplined choice strengthens neural pathways of confidence, patience, and courage. Over time, the mind stops negotiating with weakness. It commands action without hesitation. This is how inner strength is built, not dramatically, but relentlessly. And one day, without announcement, you realize something has changed. You no longer feel the need to react. You no longer chase urgency. You no longer fear silence. Your presence is steady. Your thoughts are aligned. Your direction is clear. That is mental power. So focus on yourself, not selfishly, but strategically. Focus on your habits, your mindset, your standards, your execution, because the more you focus on yourself, the stronger your mind grows, and a strong mind does not wait for opportunity. It becomes one. Energy follows attention, and wherever your attention goes, your life is being shaped in that direction, whether you realize it or not. The mind does not grow strong by accident, it grows strong by deliberate focus. Every moment you allow your thoughts to scatter, you give your power away. Every moment you pull them back toward yourself, toward your discipline, toward your purpose, you reclaim that power. This is the starting point of mental strength, and there is no shortcut around it. Most people are mentally tired not because they work too hard, but because they think without control. Their attention is pulled by noise, opinions, comparisons, and endless distractions. They wake up already reacting, already behind, already divided. A divided mind cannot build anything meaningful. Strength begins the moment you decide that your focus is no longer available to everything and everyone. Strength begins when you choose yourself, when attention becomes disciplined. The mind becomes dangerous in the best possible way. Fear weakens. Doubt loses its voice. Confusion fades. A focused mind does not ask for permission to act. It acts because it knows where it is going. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. And clarity is power. Every great achievement is born from concentrated effort, not luck, not motivation. Concentration. When you focus on yourself, you stop leaking energy into things that do not move your life forward. You stop explaining your plans. You stop seeking approval. You stop waiting to feel confident and start building confidence through action. Each disciplined thought strengthens the next one. Each focused decision makes the next decision easier. A strong mind is trained, not inspired. Inspiration fades, but discipline compounds. When you focus on yourself daily, especially on days you do not feel like it, you build mental muscle. You teach your mind that excuses are not leaders and emotions are not commanders. You become the authority over your inner world, and once that happens, the outer world loses its ability to shake you. Distraction is the enemy of strength. It keeps people busy but weak, informed but unfulfilled, connected but unfocused. The focused individual understands this and protects attention as a valuable asset. Not everyone deserves access to your time. Not every thought deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves a response. Silence, when chosen with purpose, becomes a weapon of growth. When you focus inward, you begin to see clearly. You notice patterns. You recognize habits that drain you and habits that build you. You stop blaming circumstances and start correcting behavior. This is where transformation actually happens, far away from applause and validation. Real growth is quiet. It happens when no one is watching, when discipline replaces comfort, when consistency replaces excitement. A focused mind develops patience, and patience is a sign of strength. Weak minds rush, panic, and react. Strong minds observe, decide, and move with precision. They understand that mastery is built one controlled moment at a time. They are not in a hurry to impress. They are committed to progress. As your focus sharpens, your confidence becomes internal. You no longer need reassurance because your results speak before you do. You no longer compare because you are too busy building. You no longer fear being misunderstood because your mission matters more than opinions. This is the freedom that comes from self-focus. The mind grows stronger every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every small act of discipline sends a signal that you are in control. Over time, that signal becomes a belief. That belief becomes identity, and identity dictates behavior. This is how ordinary effort turns into extraordinary strength. When challenges appear, the focused mind does not collapse. It adapts, it learns, it adjusts without drama. Pressure no longer feels like a threat, it feels like resistance training for the mind. Obstacles stop being excuses and start becoming instructions. Focusing on yourself does not mean ignoring the world forever. It means preparing yourself to meet it with strength instead of confusion. It means mastering your thoughts so circumstances no longer dictate your direction. It means choosing growth over comfort, purpose over pleasure, discipline over distraction. Energy follows attention. Feed your attention to your goals, your standards, your habits, and your inner discipline. Starve the noise, starve the distractions, starve the need for validation. What remains will be a mind that is calm under pressure, decisive under uncertainty, and unbreakable under challenge. This is how mental strength is built. One focused thought, one disciplined action, one controlled moment at a time. Self-mastery is the real battlefield, and every day you wake up, the war is already in motion. Not against people, not against circumstances, not against the world, but against the impulses, fears, habits, and excuses that live inside your own mind. This is the only battle that truly decides the direction of your life, because nothing outside of you can overpower what you have fully mastered within. Most people spend their lives trying to conquer the outer world while remaining defeated internally. They chase recognition, control, and success, yet they cannot control their own thoughts for 5 uninterrupted minutes. A mind without command is a liability. It reacts instead of leads. It obeys emotion instead of intention. True power begins the moment you realize that discipline of the self is greater than dominance over others. Self-mastery demands honesty, and honesty is uncomfortable. It forces you to look at your habits without excuses and your results without denial. The mind resists this because comfort prefers ignorance. But growth begins where comfort ends. When you stop negotiating with weakness and start confronting it, the internal battlefield becomes a place of transformation rather than chaos. Every impulse you resist strengthens your will. Every distraction you overcome sharpens your focus. Every excuse you silence builds authority within you. This is not dramatic work. It is repetitive, quiet, and often invisible. Yet it is this invisible work that creates visible strength. The world only sees the outcome, never the inner war that produced it. A person without self-mastery is easily controlled by emotions, by opinions, by trends, by fear of rejection. They may appear busy, even successful, but internally they are reactive, unstable, and exhausted. The mastered mind is different. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not surrender direction to circumstance. It moves deliberately because it is governed by principle rather than impulse. Self-mastery is not suppression. It is alignment. It is choosing long-term strength over short-term relief. It is training the mind to delay gratification without losing vision. When the mind learns to wait, it learns to win. This patience becomes unshakable confidence because it is rooted in control, not hope. Every day presents countless small battles: the urge to procrastinate, the temptation to complain, the desire to quit early. Each moment offers a choice: surrender control or reinforce it. Most people do not lose their future in one dramatic failure. They lose it through daily surrenders they call harmless. The mastered individual understands that consistency is a form of power. They do not rely on mood, they rely on structure. They do not wait for motivation. They act because they decided long ago who they are becoming. This decision removes internal debate and preserves energy for execution. Self-mastery creates silence in the mind. Not emptiness, but order. Thoughts become organized, priorities become clear. Emotional reactions lose intensity. This inner calm is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. It allows you to see clearly while others panic, to think strategically while others react emotionally. When you command your inner world, external chaos loses its grip on you. Criticism becomes information instead of injury. Failure becomes instruction instead of identity. Pressure becomes fuel instead of fear. This shift is not accidental. It is earned through repeated acts of self-control. The greatest freedom a person can achieve is freedom from their own undisciplined tendencies. When you are no longer enslaved by impulse, you are free to build, to focus, to endure. You stop chasing stimulation and start creating substance. Your life gains direction because your mind has structure. Self-mastery is not achieved in isolation from struggle. It is achieved through it. Resistance is necessary. Difficulty is essential. Without pressure, discipline does not form. Without challenge, control does not develop. The battlefield shapes the warrior. Over time, the internal victories compound. Confidence grows quietly. Decisions become faster. Doubt loses its influence. You no longer need to prove strength because you live from it. Others may not understand your calm, your patience, or your refusal to react. That is the price and the reward of mastery. This is the battle that never ends, but it does get easier to win. Each discipline choice reinforces the next. Each victory makes surrender less appealing. The mind begins to obey because it has learned who is in command. Self-mastery is the real battlefield, and those who win it gain something far greater than status or approval. They gain command over their own life. Discipline creates mental armor, and without it, the mind remains exposed to every doubt, distraction, and emotional storm that passes by. A person may have talent, intelligence, and ambition, but without discipline, those qualities are fragile. Discipline is what hardens the mind, what gives it structure, what allows it to stand firm when pressure increases and comfort disappears. Most people believe strength comes from motivation, but motivation is unstable. It rises and falls with mood, environment, and emotion. Discipline does not wait for conditions to feel right. It acts because a standard has been set. When discipline is practiced daily, the mind learns reliability. It learns that action is not optional. This reliability becomes armor, protecting you from hesitation and self-doubt. A disciplined mind does not negotiate with weakness. It recognizes resistance and moves anyway. Each time you do what must be done instead of what feels easy, you reinforce authority over your inner world. This authority builds confidence that cannot be shaken by failure or criticism because it is rooted in self-respect rather than approval. Mental armor is not built in moments of ease. It is built when effort is required and excuses are available. Every time you choose structure over comfort, you strengthen your resilience. The mind begins to associate challenge with growth rather than threat. Over time, discomfort loses its power to intimidate. Discipline creates consistency, and consistency creates identity. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally attempt. When your actions align with your intentions day after day, the mind stops doubting your capability. It trusts you. This trust is a powerful form of inner stability. Without discipline, emotions take control. Decisions become reactive. Progress becomes unpredictable. With discipline, emotions are acknowledged but not obeyed. The disciplined individual understands that feelings are temporary, but standards are permanent. This understanding prevents overreaction and preserves clarity. Discipline also protects focus. In a world designed to fragment attention, the disciplined mind chooses depth over noise. It does not chase every opportunity or respond to every stimulus. It commits to priorities and defends them. This defense is mental armor, shielding your energy from waste. As discipline strengthens, fear weakens. Fear thrives in uncertainty and lack of control. Discipline replaces uncertainty with structure and control with habit. You no longer fear starting because startin'. Chi has become routine. You no longer fear effort because effort is familiar. Mental armor does not make life easy. It makes you prepared. Problems still appear, pressure still exists, and setbacks still happen. The difference is that they no longer overwhelm you. You respond instead of react. You adjust instead of panic. Your mind remains steady because it has been trained to endure. Discipline sharpens patience. It teaches the mind to delay gratification without losing vision. This patience becomes a competitive advantage because most people quit when results are not immediate. The disciplined individual continues, knowing that progress compounds invisibly before it becomes visible. Every disciplined action is a message to the mind that you are in control. Over time, these messages accumulate into belief. That belief becomes confidence. That confidence becomes calm. This calm is not passive, it is powerful. It allows you to move decisively while others hesitate. Mental armor also creates boundaries. You learn to say no without guilt and yes with intention. You stop overcommitting and underdelivering. Your time becomes protected. Your energy becomes directed. This protection is essential for long-term strength. When discipline is absent, pressure exposes weakness. When discipline is present, pressure reveals strength. Challenges stop being threats and start becoming tests of preparation. You no longer ask if you are capable. You know you are, because you have proven it to yourself repeatedly. Discipline does not announce itself. It works quietly, daily, often unnoticed. But over time, it transforms the mind into something resilient, focused, and unbreakable. The armor is not visible, but its effects are undeniable. Silence sharpens strength, because in silence the mind stops performing and starts becoming. When the noise fades, the truth gets louder. Most people fear silence not because it is empty, but because it removes distraction and exposes discipline, or the lack of it. Silence does not weaken you. It strips away what never made you strong in the first place. In a loud world, silence is a form of control. It is the decision to stop reacting, stop explaining, and stop seeking validation. Every unnecessary word drains energy. Every forced explanation leaks power. When you choose silence, you preserve strength. You allow your actions to speak in a language that cannot be interrupted. Silence trains the mind to observe instead of react. Reaction is impulsive and emotional. Observation is deliberate and strategic. The quiet individual sees patterns others miss, hears intentions behind words, and recognizes opportunities hidden beneath chaos. This awareness becomes a quiet advantage that compounds over time. Strength is not proven through constant expression. It is built through restraint. A mind that speaks only when necessary thinks more clearly when it matters. Silence removes the pressure to impress and replaces it with focus to improve. Improvement requires attention, and attention requires quiet. When you stop announcing your plans, you protect them. Goals grow stronger in private. They are not exposed to doubt, criticism, or premature judgment. Silence creates a protected space where discipline can mature without interference. What grows in silence lasts longer. Silence also dissolves unnecessary conflict. Many battles exist only because of words spoken too quickly and emotions expressed without control. The silent mind does not engage in every argument or defend every accusation. It chooses progress over pride. This choice conserves energy for what actually builds strength. In silence, self-awareness increases. You begin to hear your own thoughts instead of borrowed opinions. You recognize internal patterns, mental habits, and emotional triggers. This awareness is essential for growth. You cannot correct what you refuse to notice. Silence builds patience, and patience strengthens endurance. When you are constantly stimulated, the mind learns to sit with discomfort without escaping. This ability is rare, and it is powerful. Those who can endure silence can endure pressure. Silence removes the illusion of urgency. Not everything requires a response. Not every moment demands action. The disciplined mind understands timing. It waits, prepares, and strikes with intention rather than impulse. This restraint is often mistaken for weakness by those who rely on noise for confidence. In silence, discipline deepens. Without applause, without recognition, without external reinforcement, you learn to act from internal standards. This builds self-respect, which is the foundation of unshakable confidence. Confidence that depends on attention collapses when attention disappears. Confidence built in silence remains. Silence also clarifies purpose. When distractions fade, priorities become visible. You stop chasing what looks impressive and start committing to what is meaningful. This clarity simplifies decisions and strengthens resolve. The quiet individual does not rush to prove worth. They understand that results do not need explanation. Progress does not need validation. Over time, silence becomes presence. Presence becomes authority. Authority becomes influence. Silence sharpens strength by reducing waste. Less talk, less reaction, less noise. More focus, more control, more growth. The mind becomes lean, efficient, and deliberate. This is not withdrawal from the world. It is preparation for it. Silence is where strength is forged before it is revealed. Isolation builds clarity because when the crowd fades away, the mind finally has space to think without interference. Most confusion is not born from lack of intelligence, but from too many voices competing for attention. When you step away from the noise, you stop borrowing opinions and start forming convictions. This is where direction is found. Isolation is not escape, it is strategy. It is the deliberate choice to reduce external influence so internal priorities can surface. In isolation, there is no audience to impress and no expectations to perform. What remains is honesty, and honesty is the foundation of clarity. When you are constantly surrounded by people, information, and stimulation, your thoughts become fragmented. You begin reacting instead of deciding. Isolation slows this process down. It creates mental distance from urgency and allows you to evaluate your life without pressure. In that space, patterns become visible. You see what is working, what is draining you, and what no longer belongs. Isolation forces self-reliance. Without immediate feedback, you learn to trust your own judgment. This trust is essential for leadership, creativity, and resilience. A mind that cannot stand alone will always be dependent, easily influenced, and easily shaken. Isolation strengthens independence of thought. Clarity does not come from constant motion. It comes from stillness. When movement pauses, reflection begins. In isolation, the mind organizes itself. Priorities realign, distractions lose their grip. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable because you are no longer absorbing unnecessary input. Isolation also reveals discipline. Without external structure, you either rise to self-command or fall into disorder. This is a test most avoid, but those who pass it gain something rare, internal order. This order translates into confidence because you know you can function without supervision or validation. The isolated mind becomes selective. It learns to filter information instead of consuming everything. This selectivity sharpens focus. You stop chasing trends and start committing to principles. Principles provide stability when circumstances change. Isolation strengthens emotional control. Away from constant interaction, emotional triggers lose frequency. You are no longer pulled into reactions or comparisons. This emotional quiet allows rational thought to dominate. Decisions improve because they are made from logic rather than impulse. In isolation, purpose becomes clearer. Without distraction, you can no longer hide from your own potential or your own excuses. The truth becomes unavoidable. You either confront it or remain stuck. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. Isolation also builds patience. Without constant stimulation, the mind learns to wait without anxiety. This patience becomes endurance. Endurance becomes strength. Most people quit because they cannot tolerate mental stillness. Those who can develop uncommon resilience. Clarity brings simplicity. Complex problems often resolve when unnecessary elements are removed. Isolation removes excess. What remains is essential. This simplicity sharpens execution and strengthens resolve. Isolation does not mean permanent separation. It is a phase of preparation, a sharpening process. Those who isolate with purpose return stronger, clearer, and more decisive. They speak less but mean more. They move slower but achieve more. Isolation builds clarity by removing distortion. It strips away noise, expectation, and distraction. What remains is a mind aligned with its own direction, capable of acting with confidence and intention. Thoughts become commands the moment you allow them to repeat without resistance. What you think consistently does not remain a thought for long. It turns into direction, behavior, and eventually identity. The mind is always taking orders, and if you do not choose them deliberately, they will be chosen for you by habit, fear, and environment. Most people underestimate the authority of their own thoughts. They believe thinking is passive, something that happens to them rather than something they control. But every repeated thought is a silent instruction to the nervous system. The body listens, the emotions respond, action follows. This is why uncontrolled thinking produces uncontrolled results. A disciplined mind treats thoughts with seriousness. It does not allow doubt to linger, because lingering turns suggestion into command. It does not entertain weakness, because attention feeds it. The mind becomes strong when it learns to interrupt destructive patterns and replace them with intentional direction. Thoughts that are repeated daily become mental law. They shape perception. They determine what you notice and what you ignore. A mind trained to focus on limitation will find obstacles everywhere. A mind trained to focus on growth will see opportunity in difficulty. The world does not change first. Interpretation does. Commanding your thoughts requires awareness. You must notice what you are telling yourself when no one is listening. Those private conversations define your future more than any public speech. If your inner dialogue is undisciplined, your outer life will be inconsistent. Strong individuals understand that emotion follows thought, not the other way around. Change the thought, and emotion adjusts. Maintain the thought, and emotion obeys. This is not suppression, it is leadership. You are not denying feeling, you are directing it. When thoughts become intentional, behavior becomes precise. You stop acting randomly and start moving with purpose. Procrastination loses power because the mind no longer negotiates with avoidance. Action becomes a natural extension of instruction rather than a struggle. Uncontrolled thoughts drain energy. They create mental noise, anxiety, and indecision. Controlled thoughts conserve energy. They create clarity, confidence, and momentum. The difference between exhaustion and endurance often lies in mental discipline. Thoughts also influence standards. What you accept mentally, you tolerate physically. If you repeatedly think small, you will live small. If you repeatedly think with structure and direction, your standards rise. Raised standards change outcomes. Commanding thoughts does not require perfection. It requires consistent. Why one strong thought practiced daily outweighs dozens of weak thoughts entertained occasionally. Over time, repetition builds belief, and belief drives behavior without force. The mind must be trained to issue commands aligned with long-term vision, not short-term comfort. Comfort-oriented thinking produces fragile results. Purpose-driven thinking produces resilience. The mind becomes steady when it knows what it is serving. External circumstances respond slowly, but internal alignment responds immediately. The moment your thoughts shift from reaction to direction, control returns. You stop waiting for motivation and start acting from instruction. Thoughts that are disciplined simplify life. Decisions become easier because direction is clear. Confusion fades because priorities are defined. This clarity reduces stress and increases effectiveness. The strongest command you can give your mind is consistency. Do the right thing even when you do not feel like it. Think with structure even when emotion resists. Over time, the mind learns obedience to intention. Thoughts become commands not through force, but through repetition. What you allow repeatedly becomes law. What you interrupt consistently loses authority. This is the foundation of mental strength. Distraction is the enemy's weapon, and it works because it does not attack with force, but with permission. It does not confront you directly. It slowly pulls your attention away until your strength dissolves without a fight. A distracted mind feels busy, yet accomplishes little. It feels informed, yet remains directionless. This is how potential is neutralized without resistance. Most people believe distraction is harmless, even normal. They confuse stimulation with progress and movement with momentum. But every moment your attention is divided, your power is divided with it. Focus is the source of execution, and execution is the source of results. When focus is fractured, Results weaken no matter how hard you try. The enemy of progress is not difficulty, it is dispersion. When your energy is spread across too many thoughts, too many goals, too many inputs, nothing receives enough force to grow. A focused mind cuts through resistance. A distracted mind circles endlessly without penetration. Distraction trains the mind to avoid depth. It conditions impatience. It creates a need for constant novelty, making sustained effort feel uncomfortable. Over time, this weakens discipline and shortens attention span. Tasks that require consistency start to feel heavy, even though they are necessary for growth. A distracted individual reacts instead of decides. They are pulled by notifications, opinions, trends, and emotions. Their day is shaped by interruption rather than intention. This reactive state feels normal to many, but it is a quiet form of loss of control. The focused individual lives differently. They choose what deserves attention and ignore the rest without guilt. They understand that not everything urgent is important, and not everything loud is meaningful. This selectivity preserves energy and sharpens effectiveness. Distraction disguises itself as opportunity. It offers endless options, but delivers shallow results. The mind jumps from one idea to another, mistaking motion for progress. In reality, mastery requires staying long enough for skill to form, and results to compound. Every distraction has a cost. It may seem small in the moment, but over time it accumulates into lost momentum. Lost momentum leads to frustration, and frustration often leads to quitting. This cycle repeats quietly in many lives. Focus requires resistance. You must resist the urge to check, to respond, to consume. This resistance strengthens the mind. Each time you return attention to what matters, you reinforce control. Over time, this control becomes automatic. The enemy does not need to stop you if it can keep you occupied. Occupation without direction is exhaustion without reward. True. Productivity is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters consistently. Distraction weakens identity. When attention shifts constantly, values blur. Priorities change daily. Regret and builds composure. Composure is often mistaken for confidence, but it is actually the result of inner alignment. When thoughts, values, and actions align, confidence follows. Self-focus encourages responsibility. Instead of blaming circumstances, you examine behavior. Responsibility empowers because it restores control. When you believe your actions influence outcomes, you move with purpose. Purpose fuels confidence. Focusing inward also reveals resilience. You recognize how much you've endured and adapted. This recognition builds quiet strength. You no longer fear challenges because you trust your ability to respond. This trust is the core of confidence. External validation becomes optional when self-focus is strong. You appreciate feedback without depending on it. Praise becomes information, not identity. Criticism becomes data, not damage. This emotional independence stabilizes confidence under pressure. Self-focus simplifies decisions. When priorities are clear, choices become easier. Indecision fades. Action becomes efficient. Efficiency reinforces belief in your own judgment. Trust in judgment strengthens confidence further. Confidence multiplied through self-focus is calm, not loud. It does not seek attention. It does not compete. It remains steady regardless of circumstances. This steadiness attracts respect without demand. Over time, self-focus creates self-respect. Self-respect is earned through discipline, honesty, and consistency. It cannot be given by others. It must be built. And once built, it supports confidence that does not collapse under stress. Self-focus multiplies confidence because it shifts the source of belief from external approval to internal evidence. The mind becomes grounded, capable, and assured through action aligned with intention. Consistency turns focus into destiny. The moment action stops being occasional and becomes a way of life. Focus alone is not enough. Many people know what they want, feel inspired for a moment, and even start strong. But without consistency, focus fades into intention, and intention